Deputy Broughan, please.
And firstly, I'd like to commend Deputy Mark McSharry for introducing the Road Traffic Amendment Use of Electric Scooters Bill 2019. Road and traffic safety, of course, has to be the cornerstone of all legislation and regulation regarding transport vehicles and road traffic structures and systems. We've all noticed the growing popularity, of course, of e-scooters and electric-powered bicycles in many cities across Europe, including our own capital city here and other towns around Ireland. The development of personalised powered transport vehicles in recent years by manufacturers and distributors like the Lime Company is kind of reminiscent of the rollout of Airbnb and Uber and that type of economic development. But pedestrians, cyclists and drivers are increasingly anxious that all the safety implications of powered scooters and bicycles will be closely invigilated by the Minister for Transport and the RSA so that the current unregulated situation will be addressed. But in that context, Deputy McSharry's bill is timely and welcome. Google carries a long list of e-scooter suppliers and machines highlighted by companies like TomTop and iHoverboard, with prices ranging from as low as €141 up to €693 and indeed higher, much higher in fact for some electric scooters. Many of the vehicles, of course, can travel at speeds in excess of 50 km an hour and across Europe have been involved in hundreds of crashes, including several deaths. In London last month, for example, the popular TV presenter and YouTuber Emily Hartridge was killed when her scooter was struck by a lorry. In Sweden, and e-scooters are very prolific in Stockholm, as I know from visiting Stockholm during the summer. A young man was killed in a crash in a bicycle lane on a scooter last May, while a 92-year-old woman was hit and killed by an electric scooter in Barcelona just last August. And there seems to be some regulation permitting the use of electric scooters in several countries such as Germany, France, Austria and Switzerland, but so far, of course, personalised motor vehicles like these are illegal here in the UK. I note, for example, that Sweden has banned the use of motorised scooters capable of speeds beyond 20 km an hour. And Section 4 of Deputy McSharry's bill, of course, subsection 1 limits the speed of e-scooters to speeds up to 25 kph. But perhaps that's something, though, the Deputy might look again at committee stage. But Section 3, of course, includes the necessity for all electric scooters to have a speed limitation device, which is a welcome provision for most road users, as indeed are subsection 2 and 3, making it an offence to tamper with the speed limitation device. Most citizens, I think, will also welcome Section 5, the requirement to wear a helmet, and Section 6, the use of powered personal vehicles to be driven carefully, and the sanctions for persons not driving such a vehicle in public without reasonable consideration for others, and perhaps the most vulnerable road users like pedestrians and cyclists. Section 8, giving the Minister power to make regulations for motorised personal vehicles like scooters and battery bicycles, is also a key element in this legislation. But I think Section 7 is a bit weak because it refers only to the RSA's power to make guidelines for the safe operation of electric vehicles rather than instructing the agency to implement detailed regulations which the Minister may make. Minister Ross, of course, has produced an amendment requiring the Road Traffic Amendment Use of Electric Scooters Bill to be read a second time on this date 3 months to allow for consideration of the public consultation of powered personal transporters, which began on September 1st and concludes on Halloween. As Deputy Ryan has just mentioned, the RSA, of course, already submitted a report on e-scooters to the Minister on June 22nd last, and it's reported in the media that the RSA research report looked at the proliferation and regulation of e-scooters across the EU and apparently had broadly favoured the use of them on Irish roads and streets, but only under very strict conditions, perhaps including licensing, possibly insurance, speed restrictions certainly, and visibility. That's another matter that Deputy McSharry would need to address in the bill, the visibility of e-scooter users. It was also reported, of course, on Garda Síochána and the traffic police are not in favour of legalising the machines due to the danger to other road users and the existing appalling road traffic deaths and injuries. In France, of course, where e-scooters are ubiquitous in cities like Paris, there have been introduced for the local bylaws against riding scooters on footpaths and for parking scooters in certain areas of the city. And Belgium, I know, has also had a speed limit implemented. Originally it was 18 km an hour, now it seems to be 25 kph. Copenhagen has also introduced new regulations, and of course, as the Minister I think has pointed out previously, under the Road Traffic Act 1961, e-scooters fall into the category of mechanically powered vehicles at present, all of which of course need insurance, road tax and a driving licence. As with all motor electric vehicles, plans for legislation in this area must address the performance of companies like Lime and Bird, which manufacture personalised powered vehicles. Clearly, Section 4 of the bill would be a key requirement for any such vehicles manufactured or imported into Ireland. For many cyclists or drivers, users of e-scooters, they seem particularly vulnerable on streets or in bicycle lanes can correlate. I'm sure you've noticed that. Deputies would have noticed that themselves if they were driving or were cycling as an e-scooter passed, since the e-scooters are moving quite fast and the silhouette of the standing e-scooter user seems less visible than a cyclist, while pedestrians generally, of course, would have the safety of the footpath. So perhaps designers and manufacturers should be required to look at more safe designs to protect the users of e-scooters. First of all, the requirement for helmets, though, in Section 5 is crucial, given what we know about concussions and head injuries. And as I said, while Deputy McSherry might also add a section on user visibility at committee stage. Protection of cyclists and pedestrians, of course, must be absolutely central to any legislation on these vehicles. The implementation of current road traffic law, as you know, Lascan, is very patchy, and there has been many lacunae in the administration of sanctions applied under these laws, which also need consolidation. That is why in the current ministerial consultation we must take the views of the traffic police and An Garda Síochána most seriously. Our Gardaí have to deal with unending tragedy on Irish roads and continuing flouting of traffic law by a small but significant minority of drivers, cyclists and pedestrians. Up to today, for example, Lascan, 117 citizens have tragically lost their lives on our roads, while 76 of those deaths were those of drivers and passengers. 21 pedestrians and 7 cyclists also died. As usual, the number of motorcyclists, with 13 deaths so far this year, is also totally unacceptably high. And we know from research by heroic road safety organisations like the Park organisation that this appalling death toll is accompanied, as it has been every year, by several thousand injuries, perhaps 7,000 or 8,000 major injuries, many of them very serious and life-threatening. And we look back, of course, over Garda traffic statistics for 2018, 17, 16 and back to the turn of the century. Of course, we notice that the death toll on our roads far exceeds the appalling level of deaths in the Northern conflict, even from 1968 up to 1998. So while powered personalised transport, it does seem attractive in terms of offering a green alternative to the use of large vehicles, especially when fixed-line public transport is so poor, Minister, in this country. Any proposal to regulate e-scooters and e-bicycles, it is important that road safety is absolutely paramount. I'm a strong supporter of Vision Zero, the Swedish originated campaign to totally eliminate road deaths, or as far as possible to eliminate them, and injuries. And any legislation, I think, like Deputy McSherry's bill, it needs to be placed fully in the context of the necessity to implement a Vision Zero approach. We know, for example, that manufacturers could have made cars and trucks much safer for many decades, and until very recently companies like Toyota, Nissan, Ford, GM, VW, Mercedes and all the rest, they all chose not to do so, mainly on cost grounds. So now we must require e-scooter manufacturers and distributors to put safety first and foremost, and that's why the proposed speed limits in the bill are very welcome, and as I said again, perhaps could be lowered to perhaps 20 kilometres at the most at committee stage. And clearly also the Department of Transport's final regulations, if any, must incorporate the other safety features of this bill, but also decide where exactly on roads and streets, and which roads and streets are suitable for any type of e-scooter and e-powered vehicles. Now, the Minister for Transport's amendment that approval and development of this bill should wait until the public consultation is completed also seems a reasonable request. The public do have widely different views on these machines, and deputies will remember that the Amárach Clareburn live poll for the Journal showed that 46% of people polled believe the law should not be changed to permit stand-up e-scooters, while 41% were in favour. There was also a significant majority in Dublin against change. But if we do decide to support, and we've listened carefully, obviously, to the debate, if we do decide to support strictly regulated permission for these machines, the safety of pedestrians and cyclists will have to be ensured. But as I said, I agree with Deputy Ryan that the consultation that's ongoing, we need to hear everybody's views on that. I think that would be critical, and then we'll have an opportunity to have a detailed debate on this bill in the House. I would support that. Thanks, Lascan.